items. Several of them I thought, since I am the official commentator tonight, here it is for his commentary. Some of the news items that we had already heard. God, these are long items. Civilized people can convey no information that is not self-serving. Now, before we continue, that's a semicolon there. An ordinary person could take that as being a criticism. But just because something can sound to an ordinary mind to be critical does not mean that it is not contained, or that it is not perchance containing something that is not, at first blush, the criticism that might seem to be from a reasonable view. Because the term self-serving, whenever it's used in public today, is normally, surely all the time, a direct criticism, an attack on someone to say, well, the information they're putting out, the statistics they're giving us, the housing authority, the Secretary of State, a particular church, any organization, that any kind of information they put out, in a sense, is going to be self-serving. But that is taken as an attack, because right after that it means, well, they're trying to promote their own interest. Having to do with the kind of intellectual, cultural, artistic, and every other kind of play going on the battlefield, on the playing field between people, you've got to expect that everyone sees everyone else's position as being at least antagonistic, in some form of opposition, even if it's on the same team. The cornerback, a halfback, they're both fighting for raises, they're both fighting to have the glory in the game for the day. But when you take it on a wider level, the idea expressed here that civilized people can convey no information that is not self-serving, let me go ahead and finish it then. I just want you to see that it is not as crude and direct and as debatable as ordinary people would have it. Civilized people can convey no information that is not self-serving, in that their unwitting allegiance always lies with ideas that support the standard form of being civilized. If you took the first part and say, well, any kind of information, or let's, right quick, we'll take the ordinary, make it sound a little bit better, what I was trying to get to you. You could say, let me rephrase the news item. Much of what ordinary people say can be found to be self-serving. Now, we could get all sorts of people, from ordinary news commentators that actually have a job and a good haircut and a tie, to ordinary men on the street that would say that's true. Very often what passes for statistics and information is nothing but the big P, the propaganda. Once you get past the limited view, the collective intelligence that ordinary people have, there is no such thing as a negative, a condemnable piece of self-serving information, because everyone who is sane, and everyone else indirectly, but everyone who is sane is working directly for everybody else's benefit. They are working directly for life. Everyone's working for life, if you want to look at it that way. Some people don't get paid very well. Some people have already been pink-slipped, some of them by the time they're born. But all the information that ordinary people, that the ordinary mind can convey, is self-serving. In that, there is no information available amongst ordinary, sane, collectively minded people that in any way is detrimental to life or to civilization, which is another way of saying life as we know it and as it is progressing. We're not talking about the backwaters of life at any particular time. We're not talking about where civilization apparently is stillborn, or is at least taking a serious time out, which is always going on somewhere, where they're having, well, you can guess as well as I can at any particular time that there are parts of this planet right now, all you got to do is think of the places that you know about in the news, where if right now somebody said, if Monty Hall jumped out from behind a chair and said, you can go anywhere you want, there are several places that would be, you'd rather stay here. You'd rather move to Mississippi than to go to some of the places, even though they'll fly you there, and it's a foreign culture. All right, that's the kind of places where things are just not going well right then. But then you've got to look at the fact that things are not going well completely with you. You may have a slight paper cut on a finger. You may have a blister on one toe, that sort of thing. But overall, the information that people pass among themselves, artistically, religiously, academically, but just the general feel intellectually in any particular area, wherever you are, the information that people are passing about, social commentaries, new ideas of morality, the debates of morality, the debates of how should we change our political system, our economic structures. Sometimes the information sounds a little threatening, but if it gets any sort of widespread coverage, then all you've got to do is look at it, once you see what I'm talking about, and you understand that it is self-serving and it is not dangerous. It becomes self-evident when it is dangerous enough, the ordinary people realize it's dangerous. Well, if suddenly somebody jumps up now and says, let's say in America, the U.S. of A., and says, there's only one good form of government, and that's anarchy. It's nothing new, but you may think it is. And some guy stands up and says that, and if they give enough courage and they turn around after 2 or 3 weeks and suddenly he's attracting crowds of 500,000, and you thought, you know, that's probably not a good thing, you're probably right. But you notice it does not happen. It does not happen. It is always a fine line. There's always somebody on the news, there's always somebody somewhere that is going too far, that is giving out, passing along ideas and information that are not sufficiently self-serving to life. But they are normally treated to, how should we put it? If you notice in a certain way, life finally sits on them. Or does worse. Life makes everybody ignore them, which you may think that a fanatic is the kind of person you wouldn't want to be around. You don't know anything until you've seen a fanatic who's lost any semblance of an audience. Better you should be locked in a closet over the weekend with an insurance salesman. But back to civilized people can convey no information and not self-serving. About the only thing else I was going to try and comment on this is anytime you're looking to escape intellectually, anytime you're trying to find some way out, which people have tried to do through drugs and then all the way to that which might seem to be a bit more intellectual, that people try to do it, sans drugs, sans any kind of extrinsic potions put in their body that they're trying to figure it out. Well, they may try to meditate and et cetera, et cetera. Find the lost book, find the secret book. Life is not going to give out information that any sane person can use unless it is self-serving, that is, unless it supports the continuing expansion of orderly, civilized life. And I know that we have covered 4 or 5 or more news items recently that's almost the same idea, but it's one of those things that are so subtle that the human mind will absolutely reject it because of the basis of how energy in the form of information is conveyed in a 3-dimensional world. That you cannot get your mind, there's nothing wrong with your mind, but the whole idea that there is a secret somewhere and it's in a book, or somebody knows it and it's some kind of information if I could get my hands on it. It's almost impossible to naysay that. Assuming again that we're talking relatively, that we're not talking about someone who is actually turned into some kind of metaphysical or occult fanatic. Just somebody who believes that there's some sort of information. There's some way life has let out the secret somewhere. There's something going on that not only do I not know about, I don't think many people on this planet have ever known. And yet there's something that tells you if you just hear another brute. Somebody's found some more scrolls somewhere. Someone's found a piece of a wallet that looks like it may be, an old Sumerian wallet, and there's something besides that round imprint. But anyway, there's some kind of scratching on there that seems to be some secret information. A sane person can find some interest in that. They might not quit their job and go looking for it, but it will strike sane people. That if you ask them, or they'd ask themselves, they almost want to believe it. That there could be somebody, there could be a small group of people somewhere that actually know some kind of secret that's just not normally known. But that same kind of sane person cannot ask themselves, and here's the point, is not to disillusion them with that sort of passing dream, which is no big deal to ordinary people, ordinary sane people. But you can learn something else about it on the basis that your own mind wants to believe that, and at the same time will absolutely ignore what this Newsine points out, that you have got to be working with somewhat of an undrained, swampy area intellectually to believe that, and then simultaneously not understand that life is not going to let out any sort of secret that would in any way do it harm. And if there is a secret, then why is it kept secret? Life has some reason, if there is such a thing, some secret, a secret, the secret. So if life is keeping it secret, why? Then don't be silly and say, well, it's saving it for a special occasion, or it wants to surprise us. or you could say, well, you know how life is. It just... If it is something not commonly known, there would be some reason it's not commonly known. And if the same person I was talking about that might have some interest, some at least passing interest and almost belief that, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't some secret. Which you do not have to be a dyed-in-the-wool, New Age, occult nut. Religious people, it's the same thing. Ordinary, mainstream religion. Well, I'm mainstream enough. How about Church of England? How about Episcopalian? They wouldn't work up a sweat over it or sing a song and stomp their foot, but they believe the same thing. People who believe in flying saucers, or people who would say, well, all right, I don't necessarily believe in flying saucers, but let's say that when it comes to that, I am somewhat of an agnostic. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I could not. I have a college education. I read. I know something about the size and nature of the universe, and I would not absolutely say that it's impossible that there are other sane thinking creatures, etc. And all that's getting to is the same thing, that there is somebody who knows more than us, which is just sort of a vague claim that there's a secret. Because they know more than us, what would they know? Well, it'd have to be something worthwhile, or else why the hell would we care? What if there's all these people flying saucers, people on other planets, they know a bunch of stuff that we don't know? Well, they can know all sorts of stuff we don't know. How about their language? We never heard of it. Who the hell cares? Well, we've got enough trouble with English. But how about they got this whole history of literature? They're older than us, so let's say they got 12,000 years of history compared to us, and they've got 12,000 years of literature. So they've got all that we don't know. Writers you never heard of. Poets, God forbid. They got their own version of Wagner, Goethe. And so on that basis, you catch the point, on that basis you could say, if there are people on other planets and intelligent, just think they know many things more than we do if they're older than we are. Just the kind of stuff I was talking about. Nobody wants to think about that, though, because you could say, well, if that's all they know, I don't even want to know what we know. I slept through English Lit 101 and 102. I don't care about their planet. I don't even care about our planet. Behind all that, though, is what I'm talking about, is when they say, well, there may be people on another planet. Spirits. Same thing. People believe, well, the dead's not really dead. They're around. And once you die, and you're dead, I mean really dead, and now you're a spirit, then you know something. Which again, you can't really work on that unless you want to make your brain say, would you please flush and leave the room? But it all comes down to the same concept of what I'm saying, is that there is, if people know something on another planet, if the dead know something, If there are angels around somewhere, spirits who work for the gods, they got to be smarter than we are, or we wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, well, how smarter? Well, they know a secret. That's what it always gets to. And the mind of an ordinary, sane person cannot ask, all right, if there is such a thing, which strikes me that there might be, why would it be hidden? And again, assuming you're sane enough and this could happen, you would have to be past the point of going, well, it is dangerous. Well, if it's all that dangerous, life wouldn't even let people think there might be something. If it was being hidden, what would be the only possible reasonable cause? Since life would be the father of all reasons. It would have to be that it would not be particularly in its own best interest for people to know about it. But then understand, people continue, there was another news item, that people will continue to believe that they're going to eat their own feet. Ordinary people. That all we got to do is continue this form of cannibalism and we'll get somewhere. Well, the collective will. But all you're going to do is run up your tongue. Well, that is, you try to eat and you begin to, you'll continue to eat yourself, but what have you got? How's eating yourself going to teach you anything? You're already you. That's the condition of the collective. Well, there were several. If we can say them together right quick. One of them was, remember the word almost. Almost only counts in horseshoes, religion, certainty, and all other human activities. Don't anybody wave one of those banners about down with oxymorons. That's not what it is. Well, there was one more. All right. It was about how you might take another attempt to see how life operates from a different direction. And it said, for example, if you would take areas, and it gave, this news item listed 2 examples that would seem to be the least pertinent, the least irrelevant, the least relevant, the least meaningful, and the least reliable, predictable. And the examples it gave was advertising and economic forecasting. But then said, after you pick that out, and you could pick out any you wanted to, but those are 2 prime ones that are free of some of the connotations of picking out religion or education. But advertising, that you can see from one view as being absolutely impertinent, just an insult to an intelligent man, and operating at its most efficient from one view, having really nothing to do directly with the product or the service. And economic forecasting, which is, quit picking on meteorologists, it's about the same thing. That a man can have a PhD and look dead in the camera and standing on the steps of the Capitol or the Treasury building and say, well, I can tell you this much. Within 6 months, anybody would believe economic forecasting, you got the same kind of memory, well, as you're supposed to, but you understand, all of you know if you ever pay attention, they cannot anymore predict that than a man can tell you for sure, a weatherman. A man with several degrees, that tomorrow it will be sunny. There's no doubt. We've got the satellite pictures. I can see the weather front moving. We know where the jet stream is. I see what the weather is right now in the Mississippi Valley and the speed at which it's moving. Tomorrow it will be sunny. And I assume all of you know, you might get up in the morning as soon as you awake, it is sunny. And by the time you can go downstairs and brush your teeth, it's pouring rain, and the rest of the day it's overcast. So you can pick out 2 things that would seem to be irrelevant and unreliable. But from another view, they are absolutely exemplary of human existence. A shortcut, if it will help a little bit. One way that it is exemplary is the fact that humans still consider it institutionally, collectively, treat both areas as being worthy of some attention, when it's worthy of none, from another view. You don't have to be a supporter. You don't have to be in advertising yourself. People get their doctorate degrees in critiquing advertising. There are many books written on the basis of social commentary of how advertising is some sort of metaphorical reflection of wherever a culture is, and etc. It's not that you have to have any particular faith in it yourself or any interest, but look at it from the collective view. advertising, you could describe it from several ways, is at the heart of the free market capitalistic system, which is right now about to become the whole economic model of the whole world, or at the heart of it, and economic forecasting. People are treated seriously. They wear good suits. They get paid good money. Our taxes help pay for all these guys sitting on the Fed boards and everywhere else. And for them to look very seriously and smoke cigars and wear nice glasses and say, well, if we do this, if we mash over here on the economy, if we do this, so-and-so will happen. And they, of course, they got no better memory than you, or else either that or they got no shame. Which, of course, is another news item. You can't be civilized and have any intellectual shame, or you wouldn't be at work tomorrow. You'd turn on to get the news at your local TV station, and every day would be somebody new. All right, every couple of days, because once or twice he might be right, whoever he is. But by the time he says, tomorrow there's no, I'll be so-and-so, and it rains all the next day after he said sunny, if the man had any shame, he wouldn't show back up. He'd go get a job driving a cab, and so every day almost he'd have somebody new. But notice, the point being, is that doesn't happen. And one more time, I'm just picking out more modern examples, because the historic one, still the great old sitting duck, is religion. That's the mother of all sitting ducks. Because if there's anything that's unreliable, unpredictable, and irrelevant to human existence, it is religion. And yet by most accounts, as obviously life needs it, most of the sane, stable people in the collective, including meteorologists and economists, will claim in public to be religious. They want to be on the statistical side in the latest poll of the 64% who say, yes, I believe in God. I've been real busy lately, but I do believe in God, and yes, I am religious. And things being pertinent. Now, we're talking about the intellectual world of man, not the physical world, because there's really nothing to say about that, even though we read some news items that says something about it. If you're sane, there's nothing to say about the physical world, except there was that news item that we're all short, fat, and going to die, and you're supposed to have some sort, if you're ordinary, you're supposed to express or feel some kind of sympathy over that fact. Of course, we don't go into what that makes a poet become, because I didn't know that our news anchor was going to be able to read that one and get through it with a straight face anyway. Well, I was going to say, the physical world, there's really nothing to talk about. People do talk about it, I know. But there's nothing to talk about. If you're sane, who knows what you are? You're either short, fat, and ugly, or you're tall, fat, and ugly, or you're skinny, short, and fat, and ugly, or you got one eye and a wooden leg and you're short and fat and ugly, and you got a hearing aid, and of course all of that, beyond all the modifiers, and you're going to die. So there's nothing else to say. If you're here right now, whatever condition you're in, that's the condition you're in, and if you were fairly sane, you wouldn't let your limbic system, you wouldn't let your mind be taking your temperature and looking in the mirror. So we're talking about the intellectual world. The physical world is a certainty. Almost doesn't count in the physical world. I mean, if you doubt that, take off your clothes and go in the bathroom or down the hall and look in a full-length mirror and see if indeed you're not short, fat, and ugly and going to die. So, the physical world is not open to certainty, to uncertainty. It is here. But the uncertainty is this. The uncertainty of the intellectual world is its life. It is its vitality. It is its health. That is what makes it alive. And so the very things that would seem to be, from one view at first blush, subject to, or you could interpret if you're ordinary, as being criticism of life. Like, well, look at life. Look how useless religion is. Look how unreliable weather forecasting. Look at the time they devote to it. Look at astrology. They take up a column or whatever it is in a newspaper, and that could be devoted to hard, meaningful news. Instead of damn astrology. No, that doesn't mean anything. Now, you know, that's a common complaint. But how do you explain this? Astrology has been around longer than the people who criticize it. I mean, just because it doesn't mean anything, it's unreliable and unpredictable, so what? And of course, an ordinary person would say, well, what do you mean so what? It's an affront. It's an insult. It's a throwback. Throwback to what? Just because, from one view, just because even statistically, you could point out that astrologists, economic forecasters, that their track record is not as good as looking at a cow's tail. That you can come up with a form of forecasting how the economy is going by whether a cow waving its tail or whether it's dead. So what? Well, of course, it's part of the fun of life, once you see it, that everyone else is very serious and upset. And those who are not serious and upset by this would be serious and upset by something else. And of course, they could just be serious and upset if somebody, walked in here and heard this. They could just be serious and upset about this. Like, well, I hadn't been very serious and upset about anything in a long time, but by God, I don't like this. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't like it. And get very serious and upset. And it'd be like life would go, well, if it paid any attention to the guy, would go, well, welcome back. Where you been? The guy wandered off and started having some kind of fun on his own, went out on a limbic spree, ex parte. But there was more to the one about taking of a certain other kind of view. I was going to read the rest of it. That if you took examples, and you can find your own if you want to, because you can use it. Just look at you. You don't have to take my examples I made up, or this news item. Think about the things in life that you just find automatically if you don't watch it. That suddenly you hear about it or read about it, and you say, Jesus, how stupid humanity is. Here they are still doing so-and-so. A throwback, a holdover, an anachronism, an affront to civilized progress. Whatever it is, look at it. And you can look at it another way and think about this to just get you started. I've already covered it. But whatever it is, that you could reasonably, you and many other people, if you do it and you're sane, then you and many other people, you will not be alone, could reasonably attack it. Some form of human behavior. And you say, how can people still be doing that? That it is just unconscionable. But what you ignore is this. That's strange that it is still going on. I mean, here I am, and I could be in the majority. I could line up plenty of support of intelligent people with me right now that would agree that this is despicable. This is not indicative of how society should be. And I could get many people behind me to go, right on, brother. But then you will ignore the fact this has been going on for 6,000 years. Is it going on now? It was going on last week. Is it going on over here sometimes? And by the time it stops here, and you go, phew, it's going on over there. There was the other parts I was going to read the rest of the news item. Only the dense fret over where and when the period to a sentence, the final punctuation, will come. When in fact they ignore the fact that they cannot rhetorically put together a coherent sentence. I think we'll all assume that there is a bit of symbolism in there. But it's on this basis everybody wants to know, how's this thing going to end? When's it going to end? Something's got to be done about it. And everybody looks to the end of the sentence. When the fact is, they cannot coherently verbalize, think about what the sentence is now. In other words, they don't understand what's going on, but the mind insists, when will this come to an end? Well, what? Well, all this stuff. Well, which stuff is that, sir? Well, the stuff that's unreasonable. Which, of course, he's saying the stuff I don't approve of, although he may be able to get a large group of civilized, sane people agree with him. But the mind keeps wanting to say, as it's supposed to, where is the final punctuation to this sentence, to this episode, to this aspect of human existence? When's it coming to an end? When they don't understand what the sentence is. it may be symbolism, but if you see it, it's neat symbolism, because that's part of what keeps the sentence going. When will this come to an end? What? Well, you know what. And they don't know what. If you knew what was going on, then you would have... The situation could not be the same if a man understood what was going on in any particular episode in life, whatever it was. The matter of religion, the matter of warfare, the matter of warfare over religion. If that was the sense going on, a man goes, when in the world is this going to stop? When will people come to their senses? If they understood what was going on, the man wouldn't be worried about the end of the sentence. It would change the whole structure of this news item. But it's like people, the human mind wants to say, somebody put an end to this. And if you say, well, are you interested in understanding what's going on? The person might say, well, yes, because it's always disturbed me that people would actually fight in the name of religion. Let's go with that one right quick. And you can say, would you have any understanding of it? Now, he may fall into trying to give you some rehashed, scavenged version of something he had read in a book or a magazine or heard, but he does not know what's going on, because if he knew what was going on, he would not be concerned over when will this come to an end. I don't mean that it shouldn't, or I don't mean that it should, but it's like the human mind wants to go, Jesus, there's more of this going on than I know what's going on. How about somebody stopping this? Could we stop this sentence? But if you try and question your own mind or somebody else, they will insist that they have some knowledge of it. If you just tried to accuse them point blank, well, you just want this to get over with. You want people to quit killing each other just because you don't understand it. Now, you understand, all you know that at the reasonable, ordinary level, that makes no sense. I mean, an ordinary person will reject that right out of hand if you say, well, the only reason that you're concerned over the interreligious rivalries and the actual warfare going on right now, and start naming the places, Bosnia, or Lebanon, Iraq. You just start naming them, and if you said, the only reason that you disapprove of that is because you don't understand it. That's silly. A civilized person would say, well, you look fairly sane, but you are absolutely psychotic. It's not a matter of that. It's simply a matter of human decency and progress. I want people to stop killing each other. All right. But remember, we're not talking about physical reality. We're talking about intellectual reality. The reason that they want something to stop, the reason they want the final punctuation, anybody's mind is I don't understand this. Would you please stop it? Which is what, of course, keeps things going. Noah, would somebody please stop this? Okay. More of the same news item. That the reason that they want to know when and where the punctuation is going to come is because they have yet to learn how to put together a coherent sentence in the first place. The slow of wit need no intellectual protection, which is why they are so vehement in their attempt to put up some. Okay, all you hombres, I'm going to shoot and kill every damn dumbass in this saloon. But Wild Bill, you can't do that. Oh yeah? Why not? Because we are the place. Since there's only one thing that distinguishes man from other animals, he must believe that there are many. That's where I should have started, isn't it? Well, we could all just think about that for a few seconds. There's really only one thing that distinguishes man. But could you find any civilized, sane man on this planet that would agree to that? There's not one thing. That could be, if you needed one, that could be an acid test for whether you're civilized or not. Whether you could stop people on the street that said, do you believe that there's only one thing that distinguishes man from other animals? But, again, if you begin to understand this kind of evidence, the fact that he insists that there's not should at least make you go, Of course, this news item just stuck it right in your face and said, since there is only one thing that distinguishes man from other animals, he must believe that there are many. What do you mean point blank wall? Well, I say a bunch of walls. I'm not sure what you mean, but yes, there are many walls